Tallahassee police make a stunning announcement just 2 hours ago. Lori Page's remains were found in Thomas County. She was last seen in 2023, and in the following days, weeks, and months, flyers and posters went up. The FBI raising the stakes on the search, putting up billboards and offering a reward. People all across the area asking the same question: where is Lori?
We came here, we're just doing everything we can to try to get a feel for who she was and what might have happened, where she might be.
I'm dealing with the loss of my child and the gross negligence of Tallahassee Police Department. The disgusting negligence of the department.
It was April of 2025 when investigators returned to a remote property in Thomas County, Georgia. A recent prescribed burn had cleared the thick brush, stripped the ground down to blackened soil, and for the first time in nearly 2 years, there was nowhere left to hide. Among the ash and exposed roots, they found human remains. 4 days later, testing confirmed what people in Tallahassee had been dreading since June of 2023. The bones belonged to 12-year-old Lori Annalise Page, a Griffin Middle School student who had vanished without a trace. At a press conference, the Tallahassee police chief reminded the city of the promise he made when she first disappeared. They would not stop until they found Lori, brought her home, and found whoever was responsible. Those words hit different when you learn who they arrested. Because the man accused of killing Lori isn't a stranger, he isn't a neighbor, it's her own father, 36-year-old Andrew Y., the same man who called 911 to report her missing and told everyone she must have run away. So why would a father turn on his own child? What really happened in the days before that 911 call? And how did a missing person report unravel into a case involving sexual assault, a suspected pregnancy, an STD, and a body dumped in the woods? What unfolds next doesn't just expose one man's evil. It shows how a child can be failed at every level, by parents, by systems, and by the people who were supposed to keep her safe. If this case hits you as hard as it should, share your thoughts in the comments at the end. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so more people hear what happened to Lori. You're watching Hidden Crime Network. This case is a sensitive one, made only for educational and documentary purposes. It does not endorse, glorify, or condone any of the criminal actions or individuals described in this case. Viewer discretion is advised. Lori Annalise Page came into the world already carrying more weight than most adults ever will. She was born on April 14, 2011, to a 22-year-old father, Andrew Y., and a 17-year-old mother, Miranda White, two people still trying to figure out their own lives, let alone raise a child. From the start, stability was something Lori heard about more than she actually experienced. Her grandmother, Brooklyn, later described her as a bright, unusually self-sufficient little girl. Lori could read by age 4. She didn't cause trouble, didn't act out for attention. She was quiet and shy around adults, but with friends, she lit up, talking about Roblox, YouTube, and the little world she built in her imagination when reality felt too heavy. The real problem wasn't who Lori was, it was what she was born into. Miranda never truly stepped into motherhood. She reportedly tried to end the pregnancy late, and when that didn't happen, she moved through life like having a child was something forced on her, not a choice she owned. Lori was left alone for long stretches. Food was placed on low shelves so she could feed herself while her mother slept through the day. It wasn't nurturing, it was survival training for a child who should have still needed help tying her shoes. Other adults stepped in where they could. Her godmother, Daisy, spent long hours with her. Brooklyn took on more responsibility than a grandmother should have to. At one point, Child Protective Services even removed Lori from Miranda's home and placed her with her great-grandfather. But like so many temporary fixes, she was eventually sent back, and the instability picked up right where it left off. Most of Lori's early childhood unfolded in and around Nashville, Tennessee. Miranda moved often, chasing jobs, chasing rent, never really landing. Every move meant a new school, new classmates, and another reset button smashed on any sense of normalcy. Lori was smart enough to adapt, but you can only rip up a child's roots so many times before something inside them stops trying to grow back. There were warning signs even then. Records show that after one argument with her mother, Lori ran away, only to return the same day. Everyone could hear the chaos, but nobody managed to stop it. By the time Lori turned 11, one thing was clear. This was a kid who learned early that the people who were supposed to protect her could just as easily be the ones who hurt her or leave her to fend for herself. And the person who would soon promise her a fresh start was the same man who would eventually become the prime suspect in her disappearance. By 2021, Andrew had drifted back into Lori's life. He was living in Tallahassee, Florida, and their contacts slowly grew from calls and visits into something more consistent. Summer trips to stay with Dad started to feel like a break from the chaos she'd known with her mother. Then came the turning point. In 2022, Miranda was worn down by money problems, constant moves, and even Lori's schooling was suffering because they were never in one place long enough, so she made a decision that would change everything. Instead of bringing Lori back to Nashville at the end of the summer, she left her in Florida. Custody was signed over to Andrew before the 2022-2023 school year. On paper, it looked like the responsible choice. One home, one school, one parent who said he could provide what Miranda couldn't. For Lori, it didn't feel that simple. However strained things were with her mother, Nashville still held her friends, her routines, the few familiar anchors she had. Tallahassee meant starting over from zero, again. New city, new school, new rules, and this time no promise of going back home when the summer ended. Andrew enrolled her at Griffin Middle School and told her she'd make new friends. But the reality was different. Lori didn't have a phone. She wasn't active on social media. Staying in touch with anyone from Nashville was almost impossible. Little by little, the connections she did have were cut away, until all she really had left was the one parent she now depended on completely. On the outside, it looked like stability. One address, one guardian, one school. But underneath, Lori was starting this new chapter already exhausted, already wary, and already more alone than anyone around her realized.
When Lori started at Griffin Middle School in Tallahassee, the problems didn't show up all at once. They leaked out in moments that by themselves might have looked small, but together painted a picture of a kid in serious trouble. Teachers noticed she kept to herself, shy, quiet, no real interest in joining clubs or hanging around after class. Then the behavior started to shift. One teacher remembered her slipping him a note asking if he liked her, a strange move from a girl who usually avoided attention. It wasn't just childish flirting. It felt like someone testing whether any adult actually saw her. There were days she'd suddenly break down crying in class and couldn't explain why. Other days the sadness flipped into anger. She'd snap, throw things, lose control in ways that didn't match her usual reserved personality. This wasn't just acting out. It looked like someone carrying way more than a 12-year-old should have to hold. The school counselor, Lisa Britt, sat her down for an evaluation. The results pointed toward depression, feelings of worthlessness, a girl who genuinely believed she wasn't good enough. And when she talked to classmates, more disturbing pieces slipped out. Lori told friends that life at home with her father was rough. She mentioned getting whooped with a belt, even saying he once approached her at the bus stop carrying it in his hand. In May 2023, after a fight with Andrew, she ran away. Not for long. She went to a friend's house, then showed up at school the same day. But the message was loud. She wanted out. At the same time, Andrew was tightening control. Calls to her mother were blocked. If Lori wanted to reach Miranda at all, she had to send emails from a school computer. By the end of that school year, every warning sign around Lori was flashing. Emotional breakdowns, explosive anger, talk of violence at home, attempts to run. The system saw the smoke. Nobody realized how close the fire already was. June 3, 2023. Just after sunrise, Tallahassee police get a call from a worried father. On the line is 36-year-old Andrew Wiley. He says his 12-year-old daughter is gone. An officer shows up at the apartment on Continental Court. Andrew explains his version. He claims he left for work around 11 p.m. the night before, June 2nd. When he came home that morning, Lori wasn't there. Her backpack was missing, so he figured she slipped out sometime during the night. The last time he says he saw her, she was on the couch watching TV. According to him, they'd spent most of the day together before his shift. He doesn't just report her missing, he frames the whole story. He reminds police that Lori had already run away once in May after a heated argument. He mentions a recent upsetting interaction she'd had with her mother, suggesting she'd been emotionally unstable. Piece by piece, he paints a picture of a kid in serious trouble. On the surface, it tracks. A 12-year-old with a history of running away, a backpack gone, no signs of forced entry. So officers start with the obvious, treat it as a possible runaway. They canvass the neighborhood, ask around at school, push out missing flyers. The community shares her photo, hoping she'll be spotted and brought back safely. But here's the problem. Lori doesn't come back. No sightings, no calls, no social media trail, nothing. And as the hours turn into days and days into weeks, one thing quietly starts to bother detectives. For a man whose only child has vanished, Andrew Wiley seems a little too calm.
After 14 days, there has to be at least one adult who has seen her or has an idea where she may have gone.
Lori is considered a missing runaway and was last seen on June 3rd near the 1200 block of Continental Court, which is close to Ocala Road and less than a mile away from Mission San Luis. Rody Ferguson, pastor for New Birth Tabernacle of Praise in Griffin Heights, doesn't know Lori personally, but he says in his position it's important to help the community any way he can.
We ought to be her family. We ought to look for her consistently until she's safe and sound. I think it's incumbent upon the churches as well in the neighborhood because that's why we're there. We're in the community not just for spiritual growth, but also to be a voice.
Summers says Lori has run away before, but she's always been found within a few days.
I'm hoping that if nothing else, that Lori will come to the school. She knows she's safe there. She knows that people care about her there. And we're in summer school, so she can come there any day, Monday through Thursday.
Pastor Ferguson forwarded Lori's missing person bulletin to the Frontline Pastors Action Council, which is made up of about 26 pastors.
We're going to keep searching. We're going to keep making phone calls. We're going to keep putting her bulletin out there. We're going to keep doing it until she's safe and sound, until we have some type of results.
Summers says Lori's teachers and friends are concerned, and they're just hoping she'll come back.
If we can find Lori, we can hopefully find her a mentor, so next time she faces struggles, she can talk to her mentor and not feel like she has to run away.
And her message for Lori if she's watching.
Lori, you're a great student and a great kid, and there's nothing that you haven't done well enough. Just come back.
Days turn into weeks. Lori doesn't show up at school. She doesn't walk into a police station. No friend suddenly admits she's been hiding out at their house. It's like she vanished into thin air. Rumors start spreading anyway. Kids at Griffin whisper that she might be dead, that her body could be near the airport. None of it is backed up by evidence, but that's what happens when a child stays missing too long. People start filling the silence with their own stories. In August 2023, Lori's mother, Miranda, posts a short, haunting message on Facebook, a broken heart emoji, and the words, "My baby is gone." Then she deletes it. When investigators ask, she says she wasn't confirming a death, just putting her fear into words. But it's enough to put her back under the microscope for a moment. Police push for a standard DNA cheek swab for Miranda. She refuses, not once, 3 times. Eventually she complies, but the hesitation doesn't go unnoticed. Even so, her phone records tell a different story. They place her in the Nashville area around the time Lori disappeared, not in Florida. Whatever you think of her parenting, the evidence says she wasn't there when Lori went missing. So attention swings back to Andrew. Detectives notice his flat effect. No visible panic, no desperation you'd expect from a parent whose 12-year-old has been gone for months. In a monitored call with Lori's grandmother, Brooklyn, she tries to talk about decorating Lori's room, about how much they miss her. Andrew steers the conversation back to himself, how stressed he is, how unfair it feels to be treated like a suspect. Then the timeline starts to crack. Records show Andrew called in sick to work twice in the days before Lori vanished, with no clear explanation of what he was actually doing. Location data later hints at an unexplained trip toward Jacksonville. When he's asked about it, he claims he drove a friend named Tim Brown to the airport. His own family has never heard of this Tim Brown, and the real Tim police do find says he was never dropped off at Jacksonville International. By early 2024, this is no longer just a missing child case. It's a question hanging over one man. Is Andrew an unlucky father, or the only person who really knows what happened to Lori.
I'm feeling discouraged. Just to not know anything for 8 months feels like too long.
Margaret Summers says the days grow longer knowing that 12-year-old Lori Page is still missing after nearly 8 months.
Every kid matters, and if she just disappeared and nobody knew about it, wouldn't that say she doesn't matter? She does matter, and she's going to continue to matter. And here we are 8 months later. We haven't stopped looking. We're not going to stop looking.
Don't be scared.
Tuesday, about 90 people between Tallahassee Police and Fire Department searched 64 acres of Mission San Luis Park. TPD says Page was last seen in the general area near Continental Court off Ocala Road.
Our concern grows day by day. We want to be able to bring Lori home and reunite her with her family and friends. When you have this amount of time that goes by, our concern always increases, but we've really been concerned since day one.
Alicia Hill with the police department says this is their 5th search since Page was originally reported missing last summer.
But the reality is there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, so much investigative work. Even with a minimal digital footprint, we still have to comb through evidence online.
And as the search continues, Summers remembers Page as one of her brightest students.
She was more into school, more so than any other kid that I dealt with. We are supposed to go out of our way to make the kids feel important, but the way she always beelined over to me made me feel important.
When detectives finally got a warrant for Andrew's phone and electronics in February 2024, they weren't just looking for messages. They were looking for intent. What they found looked nothing like a worried parent searching for his missing child. On his devices were search queries that lined up almost perfectly with the days around Lori's disappearance. Things like looking up remote areas with water in Alabama and Georgia, and even questions about where law enforcement typically searches for missing kids. That's not the mindset of someone expecting their daughter to walk back through the door. That's someone trying to figure out where police won't look. Then they turned to his car, a Dodge Charger. Inside, officers found a handgun, ammunition, and a bottle of cleaner specifically marketed as being able to remove blood. The factory floor mats that should have been in the vehicle were gone. Carpet samples were taken and sent to the lab. The results came back with the one thing Andrew couldn't talk his way around. It was Lori's blood in the fibers of his car. Forensics teams also managed to recover data from devices Andrew had tried to wipe, factory resets, deleted histories, old phones. Even in fragments, the pattern stayed the same. Searches tied to remote wooded areas and disposal spots in neighboring states. And then there was his spending. In the days leading up to Lori's disappearance, Andrew's financial records showed a purchase of Plan B, the emergency contraceptive. Around that same period, he sought treatment for an STD, but refused to allow a full physical exam. Prosecutors would later argue that wasn't a coincidence. It was part of a bigger secret he was trying to erase along with his daughter. At this point, detectives weren't asking if something bad had happened around Andrew. They were asking how much worse it could get. With the digital trail in hand, investigators finally had a direction. Andrew's phone hadn't just been sitting at home the weekend Lori disappeared. Location data showed it traveling north into South Georgia, pinging near a remote stretch of land in Thomas County that locals referred to as a plantation. Teams went out there in early 2024. They brought dogs, searched on foot, combed through thick brush and waist-high growth. The terrain worked in Andrew's favor. There was too much cover, too many places to hide something small and fragile like a 12-year-old's remains. After multiple sweeps, they left with nothing to show for it but frustration. Then, nature did what investigators couldn't. On April 5, 2025, the landowner carried out a prescribed burn. Fire rolled through the property, eating away the dense undergrowth, stripping the ground down to ash and exposed roots. When detectives went back after the burn, the same area they'd walked before looked completely different. And this time, the evidence wasn't buried. Scattered across the newly cleared soil, they found bones, a partial skeleton, enough to know it was human, enough to know someone was left out there and forgotten. At least, that's what the killer was hoping for.
The remains were sent for testing. On April 11th, the answer came back. It was Lori. For 22 months, people had hoped she was hiding, surviving, out there somewhere waiting to be found. The reality was colder. She hadn't run away. She hadn't been secretly living with friends. She had been lying in a Georgia field while her father told everyone she must have just walked out on her own. And once her body was identified, Andrew's story was no longer just suspicious. It was impossible.
Tallahassee police make a stunning announcement just 2 hours ago. Lori Page's remains were found in Thomas County. She was last seen in 2023, and in the following days, weeks, and months, flyers and posters went up. The FBI raising the stakes on the search, putting up billboards and offering a reward. People all across the area asking the same question: where is Lori?
On April 11th, 2025, nearly 2 years after he'd called 911 as the worried father, 36-year-old Andrew Y. was arrested and charged with second-degree murder in connection with his daughter's death. Prosecutors didn't just say he killed her. They laid out a theory for why. They pointed to the Plan B purchase right before she disappeared. They pointed to his STD treatment and his refusal to allow a full physical exam. They pointed to the blood in his car and the searches for remote wooded areas and disposal spots in neighboring states. Taken together, they argued this wasn't a spontaneous act of rage. It was a man trying to erase the evidence of what he had been doing to his own child and the consequences that might expose him. In court, a judge denied him bond and ordered that he have no contact with certain members of Lori's family. Outside the courtroom, his own brother launched a fundraiser claiming Andrew was innocent and that police had the wrong man. The campaign didn't last long. The platform pulled it down under policies against raising money for violent crime defenses. But it showed just how divided even the people closest to him were. Then, before any of that information could be tested in front of a jury, the case took one last turn.
Years ago, we would never give up. I told you 2 years ago we would find Lori and we would bring her home. I told you 2 years ago that we would find who did this and we would arrest them and bring them to justice. And today, I stand before you to tell you we have done just that.
On June 19, 2025, while being held at the Leon County Jail, Andrew collapsed. Staff and medical personnel tried to save him. The next day, he was pronounced dead. The coroner ruled it a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot that reached his lungs. No fight, no attack, no dramatic courtroom scene. Just a sudden, clinical end to a case that had taken nearly 2 years to build. Legally, that changed everything. With no trial and no conviction, the file was closed without a formal guilty verdict. All that digital evidence, all that forensic work, all the timelines and cell tower data, none of it would be argued in front of a jury. For the system, the case was technically unresolved. For Lori's family and her community, it felt like the man they believed hurt her took the last word with him.
Andrew Wiley, the man accused of killing his daughter Lori Page, is dead after having a medical emergency. The Leon County Sheriff's Office confirmed his death late this evening. According to LCSO, staff moved Wiley to their medical unit and attempted life-saving measures. They say the 36-year-old died a little after 5:30 this evening.
After Andrew's death, the focus shifted back to the person who never got a say in any of this, Lori. In Tallahassee, people gathered in parks and at vigils to remember her. Candles, prayers, quiet moments, and a question hanging in the air. How does a 12-year-old girl get failed this badly by so many adults for so long? Teachers who worked with her described a bright kid who cared about school more than most, a girl who still tried to make the adults around her feel important even while she was falling apart inside. Community leaders didn't sugarcoat it. They talked about how the system treated her like a runaway first instead of a child in danger, how early red flags, emotional breakdowns, reports of violence at home, running away, weren't enough to pull her out before it was too late. One pastor put it bluntly, the way she was found should stay burned into everyone's memory so it never happens again. And that's the real weight of this case. Not just what Andrew is accused of doing, but what it says about the gaps around kids like Lori. When the threat is inside the home, stranger danger posters don't help. What matters is whether teachers, neighbors, relatives listen when a child's behavior is screaming that something is wrong, and whether systems move fast enough to act on it. Let us know what you think about this case in the comments, but keep it respectful. Lori was a real child with a life, not just a headline. If you found this story important, like the video, share it so more people hear her name, and subscribe for more true crime stories that don't just entertain, but demand we pay attention.
If you want to learn how to spot dangers early and stay safe, check description. I have a gift for you.
Until next time, remember that ignoring red flags doesn't keep the peace. It just gives abusers more time while the most vulnerable pay the highest price. Speak up and save a kid today. Stay safe, stay wise, and thank you for joining us today. See you on another story from the Hidden Crime Network. Bye for now.